Everything starts with something so ordinary that almost no one questions it. Two people bring their faces close together, press their lips against one another, and somehow this simple physical act carries more emotional weight than almost anything else humans do. We call it a kiss. And strangely, for something so universal, so instinctively understood, almost no one can explain where it actually came from. Ask most people why humans kiss, and the answer usually stops at, it feels romantic, or it's how you show love. But that answer explains what a kiss does, not why it exists in the first place. Why this particular gesture? Why the mouth? Why press faces together at all when there are countless other ways to express affection? The deeper you look, the stranger the question becomes. Here's something surprising. Kissing is not universal across human cultures the way many people assume. Anthropological surveys have found that a significant percentage of human societies throughout history had no tradition of romantic mouth-to-mouth kissing at all. In some cultures studied by researchers, the practice was entirely absent until introduced through contact with outside groups. If kissing were a simple, hardwired instinct shared by all humans everywhere, this wouldn't make sense. Instincts don't usually skip entire civilizations. So if kissing isn't universal and it isn't purely instinctive, where does it come from? One of the oldest and most compelling theories traces the origin of the kiss not to romance, but to something far more practical: parenting. In several ancient and traditional cultures, mothers fed infants by chewing food into a soft paste and passing it mouth to mouth, directly to the baby. This wasn't romantic. It was survival, a way to deliver nutrition before infants could chew solid food themselves. Researchers studying the evolutionary roots of kissing argue that this early, essential mouth-to-mouth contact between parent and child may have laid the neurological and emotional groundwork for what later became a romantic gesture between adults. The mouth, in other words, may have been humanity's first symbol of trust and closeness, long before it became a symbol of romance. If that's true, it reframes something people assume is purely emotional. The romantic kiss may be at its biological root echoing something far older, an ancient association between mouths, closeness, and survival. But that still doesn't explain everything. Because if kissing began as parental care, why did it evolve into something romantic and even sexual between adults at all? This is where biology gets involved. When two people kiss, an enormous amount of sensory information gets exchanged in a very small space. Human lips contain some of the most nerve-dense skin on the entire body, far more sensitive than most other exposed areas. This sensitivity means a kiss provides the brain with extraordinarily detailed feedback: warmth, texture, pressure, even taste, all processed almost instantly. And taste, it turns out, might matter more than most people realize. Some researchers propose that kissing may have evolved partly as an unconscious way to gather biological information about a potential partner. Saliva contains hormonal and chemical signals that may offer subtle clues about someone's health, their immune system, even their genetic compatibility. In this view, a kiss isn't simply an emotional gesture. It may function almost like a biological test, run instinctively, without either person realizing it's happening. This theory connects to something researchers call the MHC hypothesis, referring to a set of genes involved in immune system function. Some studies suggest that people are subconsciously more attracted to partners with different MHC gene profiles than their own, potentially because genetic diversity in immune-related genes can produce healthier offspring. And remarkably, a few studies have found that people can, at some subconscious level, detect information related to MHC compatibility through scent and taste. Information a close, lingering kiss would provide better than almost any other form of contact. Which raises an almost unsettling thought. When two people kiss for the first time, some part of their biology may be running a silent evaluation neither of them consciously chose to perform. Still, biology alone doesn't capture the full picture either, because a kiss isn't only a chemical exchange, it's also deeply, powerful powerfully emotional, and that emotional weight appears to be rooted in the brain itself. When people kiss, brain imaging studies show a surge of activity in regions associated with reward, pleasure, and social bonding. Levels of oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, tend to rise, the same hormone involved in parent-infant attachment and long-term romantic bonding. At the same time, levels of cortisol, a stress hormone, often decrease. In other words, a kiss doesn't just feel good in the moment. It appears to biologically reinforce trust and closeness between. This might explain something almost everyone has experienced, but rarely thinks about. How a single kiss can feel more intimate, more revealing than far more physically intense forms of contact. The vulnerability of the act, faces close, breath shared, guard lowered, seems to trigger something deep and old in the nervous system. But here's where the story gets even more layered. Because kissing isn't just about romantic partners. Humans kiss in dramatically different contexts. A kiss between parent and child. A kiss between close friends in some cultures. A ceremonial kiss of greeting. A kiss of grief at a funeral. The same physical act carries entirely different meanings depending on context, culture, and relationship. This flexibility is strange for something often assumed to be a fixed biological instinct. It suggests that while the underlying neurological wiring, the sensitivity, the reward circuitry, the oxytocin response, may be rooted in deep evolutionary history, the specific cultural meaning of a kiss is something humans layered on top of that biology over thousands of years. Which brings us to another unresolved mystery. Why the mouth specifically? Why not the forehead or the hands, universally, the way some greeting gestures are? Some researchers argue that the answer lies, again, in the extraordinary sensitivity of the lips and the proximity of the mouth to two of our other primary senses, smell and taste. When you kiss someone, you're not just touching them. You're absorbing detailed sensory information about them through multiple channels simultaneously. Information your ancestors may have used, consciously or not, to assess health, compatibility, and emotional safety, all in a single intimate motion. Other researchers push back on parts of this picture, noting that human courtship behavior is deeply shaped by culture and learning, not biology alone, and that no single evolutionary explanation fully accounts for the diversity of kissing traditions across human history. This is one of those areas where science offers compelling partial answers, but not a single complete one, and it's more honest to sit with that uncertainty than to pretend the story is fully solved. What does seem clear is that the kiss sits at a rare intersection of biology, culture, and emotion, a gesture that may have begun as a practical act of feeding and survival, evolved into potentially a biological compatibility check, and eventually became one of humanity's most emotionally loaded symbols of intimacy and trust. What does seem clear is that the kiss sits at a rare intersection of biology, culture, and emotion, a gesture that may have begun as a practical act of feeding and survival, evolved into potentially a biological compatibility check, and eventually became one of humanity's most emotionally loaded symbols of intimacy and trust. Which means that every time two people kiss, they may be unknowingly participating in something layered with deep evolutionary history, a faint echo of a mother feeding her child, a subtle, ancient biological exchange neither person consciously controls, a modern emotional ritual shaped by culture, memory, and personal meaning. Maybe that's the real hidden truth behind something so seemingly simple. The kiss isn't just a romantic gesture invented by human culture. It may be one of the oldest, most quietly complicated acts our species ever developed. A single motion carrying threads of survival, biology, trust, and love, woven together so seamlessly that